Spontaneous oracles and prophecies, which had much currency amongst the ancients, have now fallen into disrepute. Life having become mechanical, anticipation has become so too. We construct artificial instruments accurately designed for their future uses, and we collect masses of statistics. Yet it is extraordinary how blank our imagination is in regard to those events for the sake of which all our measures are taken. Our hands fashion the future, while our heads are full of the past. No harm ensues when the method of action is well established. A half-blind old woman may go on knitting usefully while she babbles old nonsense and vain regrets. Agriculture and trade may continue to prosper while rival politicians take turns at the government. But in politics, the most experienced men are the worst prophets, and the history of parties is a history of blunders. Here and there, a genuine Hebrew prophet, like Marx, may divine and seem to direct the future, precisely in those large dramatic turns which the soul is ready for and foresees. The war of classes, which is always latent, may be stimulated into a paroxysm of mutual hatred until only one class survives. Yet even when such is a genuine promise of the soul, machinery soon intervenes and the course of events deviates into the unforeseen and the undesired. When prophecy is trusted, the vital springs of prophecy necessarily feed history also, and the general theory of nature. For if oracular intuition, summary and morally weighted, can predict the future, it will thereby discover the principles that have governed the past also. The whole universe in that case must have a moral skeleton, such as intuition can divine. Yet as this moral skeleton is far from specifying the vast detail of events, two levels of truth come to be distinguished: fundamental, generic, universal truths, such as prophets may discern, and homely, accidental truths such as every man daily comes upon. This was the classic view of the universe. Platonic ideas, the genera and species of Aristotle, the axioms of logic, the geometry of bodies, the Ten Commandments, and the decrees of providence determine the general nature of things and their ultimate destiny, and these were called eternal truths. But the weather and the fortune of individuals were left to chance. The tile dropping from the roof on a passer-by had for its intelligible nature or function to be a part of that roof, and not to fall from it. If it fell only by chance, and the man going about his normal business passed by at that moment only by chance. These accidental conjunctions did not express the true nature of anything. They occurred only because different natures or principles sometimes collided in the same matter, so that the event was hybrid and abnormal, or, more fundamentally, chance appeared in the passive resistance or sluggishness of matter everywhere, blotching the execution of every ideal design. Truth, in such a system of moralistic physics, could acquire a meaning quite different from that which I assign to the word. Instead of being descriptive of existence, the truth would be a model for existence. It would exhibit the world purified, transfigured, reduced to its essential principles. The truth would then paint an inspired, a flattered, and therefore, in my sense, a thoroughly false picture of reality. Yet reality for a prophet demands and justifies this neglect of what exists only by chance. And the bolder idealists will ultimately deny that the accidents and evils and appearances that seem to obscure that principal vision have any reality at all, for having no raison d'etre, no inner justification for their momentary apparition. They are illusions. They collapse and annul themselves when questioned, and are simply false. The word truth thus becomes a eulogistic term, as the word reality does also. Reality will exclude, not include, appearance, and truth will not be the eternal image of all facts and illusions whatsoever. in the order of their existence, but rather an explanation of existence, the solution of the puzzle, an awakening from the nightmare, so that all illusions may be dispelled and may cease to distract the spirit. A modern critic would at once perceive that what, according to classic philosophy, happens by chance gives us the key to all natural causation. The tile was loosened by the rain or some other physical agency, and the man passed at that moment because minor incidents in that day's life had combined to bring him there. That he could not have prophesied that conjunction merely by proclaiming his guiding impulses or by defining the proper function of tiles only proves that moral impulses and functions are not primary causes, but tropes sustained by the organization of animals or arts which are a part of nature, and that this animal or technical organization remains in constant action and reaction with the mechanical order of nature at large. Any prophecy founded on passion is therefore extremely loose and precarious. It can foresee at best that single strain in the future which will prolong the prophet's present impulses and powers. Accurate prophecy is possible only where the laws of matter have been studied, and the conjunction of various agencies in the future can be calculated. Amongst these agencies, the organized powers and arts of man will be numbered, but circumstances must be reckoned with. The issue will always be partly determined by what the moralist calls chance, and the exact conjunction of particular natures and particular chances might be foretold by a science that had access to all the circumstances. In regard to eternal truths, a modern critic, if imperfectly critical, might be inclined merely to substitute natural laws or mathematical logic for the intuitive principles proclaimed by the prophets. But in so doing, he would confuse, as the prophets do, the intrinsic eternity of all truth with the length of time during which a particular fact or a particular trope may prevail in nature. An eternal truth would then mean an everlasting fact, but as the everlastingness of any fact can only be presumed, and as the future or the unknown past might well belie that presumption, eternal truths would become presumptive also, and mere articles of faith. Such indeed these logical pillars of the universe appear to be when we consider them critically. Notions in origin, postulates in function, abstractions in character, and probably not truths at all. The demands of sanity, though not of logic, were satisfied by this classical philosophy. The nature of things and eternal truths determine the future as well as the past, but only within limits. The outlines were fixed, rational, and predictable, but the detail was due to chance, and there was no knowing how it would befall. Therefore, Aristotle and his pagan followers could deny the truth of propositions about the future. Human predictions of chance events were superstitious, whilst the divine mind possessed only general ideas and was sublimely ignorant of all accidents, whether future or past. On the other hand, no pervasive mechanical laws were admitted by which many of these accidents, or all of them in theory, might be calculated backwards and forwards, in contempt of moralistic categories. Yet this possibility, well known to the ancient atomists, was destined to prove fertile in modern science, and to seem the key to nature, while the intense personal religion of the monotheists demanded a God who should be the sole creator and ruler of the world, and the searcher of all hearts to their most secret depths. A God who did not foresee the consequences of his acts would be a blind natural force, and one who exercised only an involuntary influence, and thought of nothing but his own thinking, would be too evidently a cool figment of logic. Monotheism thus introduced into the popular mind, in an inevitably mythical form, the radical notions of matter and of truth. Divine omnipotence stood for matter, or the universal dynamic agency in the world, and divine omniscience stood for the truth, eternal and comprehensive. In being personified, however, these ontological principles were united incongruously, and the notion of truth in particular came to be entangled in artificial difficulties. The truth is not a power, only a description of the works of power, be they what they will. The truth about the future does not therefore compel the future to be what it will be, but on the contrary, the character of that future, due to no matter what causes, or perhaps quite causeless, compels the truth about it to be what the truth eternally is. This was often perceived by theologians in the controversies concerning freedom and necessity. Divine foreknowledge did not influence what it foresaw, but this consideration, though just, was futile, because the omnipotence of God, combined with his foreknowledge, did after all render him responsible for everything foreseen. If we drop the mythical element and consider truth and power in their respective essences, this complication disappears. Truth is absolutely passive, following all the contingent meanderings of existence. And whether these are spanned by large or by small tropes, or rebellious to all measure, is a question of fact for which existence itself must supply the answer. This answer will be the truth.